Did you know that the book of Revelations almost didn't make it into the Christian Bible? And that the only reason that it made it into the Christian Bible is because of the political wranglings of Athanasius of Alexandria. Post the Nicene Creed, the Nicene Council in 325, Athanasius was charged with the duty of determining when Easter would happen within the Roman Empire for all Christians, as well as when Christmas would happen for the Christians in the Roman Empire, the birth of Jesus. Beyond that, he also took it upon himself for the next 25 years to recommend and politically pressure for what books should be canonized and what books of the Bible should not be canonized. Roughly about 29 years, actually, that he was pressing for the different books to be added, the different books to be canonized, and those that should not be canonized. The book of Revelation was an interesting one because the overwhelming majority of Christians during that time frame did not like the book of Revelations. They thought that the book of Revelations demonstrated a God that was not loving, that was not merciful, and a God that was hell-bent on punishing people for all eternity. And you have to understand that in most Christian views, this God could not have been a God that punishes people for all eternity. So it was rejected by most of the Christians during that time frame. And chapter 9 demonstrates some of that mentality of this God. In chapter 9, it talks about how a star fell, Lucifer, from the heavens. And this star had the keys to the bottomless pit. And when he opened the bottomless pit, smoke and fire comes out of the bottomless pit. And then these scorpions that got these bodies like lions and tails of, these locusts that has bodies like lions, tails like scorpions come out. And what they will do is go around hunting down people who did not believe in Jesus, didn't believe in the word of God, as they say it. And these people would seek out death, but death would not come to them. Death would fly away from them. And they would have to go through months and months of pain, because I believe it's supposed to last for about 5 months, that they will be in pain so great that they will wish death upon themselves, but yet find no death. And then at the end of all of that, another angel who is the king of all the locusts, and the locusts will be calling out his name of Abaddon or Apollyon in Greek. And this angel is the king over the scorpions who are going out there and tormenting people who did not believe in this God. Now, there's a lot of Christian debate over who the angel that comes down with the keys. Most automatically assume that that's Jesus. And there's debate over who is this angel who's the king over these locusts. Many Christian groups say that this king over the locusts is Satan, whereas others say that this king is Jesus who is over it. And that has been a debate between the Methodists, the Jehovah's Witness, the Catholics, other Protestant groups. So they haven't determined within themselves throughout centuries as to who is Abaddon and who is Apollyon, which the names just mean the destroyer. But that destroyer is the king over the locusts. And there's also the debate about the fact that the falling star, Lucifer, in the Latin, is also referred to as Jesus. And some don't want to apply even that to Jesus, but they want Jesus to hold all the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And one of the reasons why that is a part of the argument is because of what's in chapter. But chapter 20 actually says that an angel will come down holding the keys to the bottomless pit and will throw Satan, the serpent, that old serpent, will throw them into this bottomless pit. And then it will be there for 1,000 years and tempt nations no more. And then he'll be released for a little while to then tempt again for a little bit, and then thrown into this lake of fire, which is an interesting point because it talks about how death and Hades, death and hell, are thrown into the lake of fire. Death and hell thrown into the lake of fire, which means that the lake of fire is not hell. You see how that works? That is multiple distinctive places. But Christians did not, at that time frame, think that a God, a loving God, could be so merciless that he would allow for Satan at this time frame, this juncture, to come in and tempt the nations for a little while so that he can throw more people into the lake of fire. It seems rather cruel. But the backdrop of the writing of Revelations was Christians being persecuted during the Roman Empire. So this becomes fan fantasy of revenge. So revenge fantasy for the Christians of that day against the Roman oppressors. And it's not hard to see this type of mentality because we can see that in many cultures. The one I'm going to use that is close to my heart because of what I've seen would be the Rwandan conflict in the mid-90s. The Hutus and the Tutsis were pushed against each other by the Belgium while they were colonized. You keep the two forces fighting each other, you can control them. But once the Belgian people left, a bunch of anti-Hutu laws were made, and so the Hutus began to massacre the Tutsis. So that revenge of the Hutus towards the Tutsis is one of the things that pushed the Rwandan conflict. And then revenge for the Tutsis towards the Hutus was starting to emerge until President Kagame brought them all together to come in as one nation. We can also see this with many groups in America. You have black people who want revenge on Caucasian Americans for what happened during slavery. You can see these kinds of things anytime an oppressed group is finally gained their freedom. Oftentimes revenge is desired. So it's not crazy to think that the Christians in that second century time frame, looking at what was going on with the Roman emperors and their treatment of Christians, to desire revenge and would write revenge fantasy. But that revenge fantasy went overboard and was looked down upon by many Christians in around the 3rd and 4th century because Christians were getting better in the Roman government. They were part of the Roman army of Maxentius. They were part of the Roman army of Constantine. They were holding political office. Their churches were starting to be recognized. In 318, they gained legal status in the Roman Empire. 325, Constantine really gives them or helps organize them. And so Christians didn't care for the book of Revelations because now their God seems to be a merciless God. And so the book of Revelation was not desired. And I think the book got the Bible was this true canonization started around 369. So of course, by the time we moved to 381, when Emperor Theodosius makes Christianity the religion of all of the Roman Empire, there were still Christians who did not want the book of Revelations. And so during some of the ecumenical councils that happened after, there was a consensus of people who did not want the book of Revelations, but it still stuck. But when you look at this book, a God who would torment people in this type of pain, a God who would just destroy people for not believing in him, whether they knew about him or not, is not a merciless God. And yet some Christians knew that, but it seems like the majority of the Christians in power do not understand that. And Christians today will utilize these 2 chapters to try to fearmonger you into Christianity, into believing in this God. And if fear is ever used to get a person to believe in something, then that something is not worth believing in. So it does demonstrate that this God used more hatred and more fearing than it uses love to try to get people to believe in him. Therefore, it is not God. So y'all have a great day. And remember always, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.